Hi, this is Sir Flobojan Thunderhammer.
And I'm King Cabbage Tidehammer.
And this is WAK. We got a couple of serious ones under our belt.
Slept with the king.
And you become the champion day one and walk out.
I'm surprised your beards didn't get Velcroed together.
Explain that. You have to explain.
I haven't a clue.
That's why.
Some sort of LARP thing. I survived that. I'm not going to murder you.
Sir Khazon Mander is a knight of Winter's Edge and one of the few knights in Winter's Edge to hold the distinct honor of two different titles of knighthood. Earning both his flame and crown belt, he started playing Amtgard at least in 2000 at Darkwater East in the Kingdom of Neverwinter. Sir Khazon has been active in Amtgard's leadership roles within the Kingdom of Winter's Edge and previously Neverwinter since he joined the game and still mentors future leaders almost 20 years into the game. Today we have with us Sir Khazon Mander.
Hey, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to be here.
Yeah.
So I wanted to grab your first question, just a quick layout on the format that we're going to follow. We're going to hit you with 4 questions, and then we always have 2 follow-up questions for everybody after that. So question number 1, how did you get into Amtgard? You've been in for a very long time. What was it that got you in?
Yeah, so interesting story. One of my roommates worked at Aladdin's Castle in Gainesville, Florida. And he happened to work with this fellow named Marcelo. And Marcelo was involved in Amtgard. And I hadn't heard the name Amtgard, just that he was in some sort of LARP thing that was interesting. And they had to come back to us. And my roommate was like, yeah, he keeps on telling me about this, and I kind of want to go check it out. So I was like, okay, well, it sounds neat, whatever. But we just kind of did our thing. And, we're playing D&D and all that kind of stuff, and Magic the Gathering and all those kinds of things. But then one day the Hogtown Medieval Fair came to happen in town. And so myself and a couple of roommates went out to the Hogtown Medieval Fair. And we played this clue game that they had, where they had a whole bunch of Amtgarders that were doing this game to raise funds for their park. And different people in the fair were wearing I Have a Clue. And you'd go up to them and and you would go ahead and try to get their clue from them. They'd ask you to do little minor tasks, silly things like sing I'm a Little Teapot, the whole group or whatever. Just little interesting tasks to kind of get to know those people and get to know the fair. And it was a whole lot of fun. And in the end, they started talking about Amtgard. They had a little flyer at the booth where you went ahead and signed up and checked out and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, what's this? So I came home with the flyer, and turned out that was the thing that had been kind of advertised through my friend. And so we're like, all right, you know what? We're going to go ahead and give this thing a shot. We'll see what this is all about. So on there, it's got this number, and it says to call the Baron, and it has a number. So I go ahead and call this number, expecting I've got some sort of, baronial kind of voice kind of going to answer this phone here, and, maybe getting some RP with me or something. I don't know. So I call up. And answering the phone is this high, squeaky voice, hello. I'm like, not exactly what I'm anticipating from the Baron. This like really, it sounds like the kid's maybe like 8.
For those younger listeners, we actually used to have to use these things called phones to do this thing called calling each other.
Yeah,
and flyers were put up in your local D&D store, literally, with really bad graphics on it.
Yeah, this is all very pre-Facebook. I mean, I remember there was a listserv at one point for Knoxville.
There was a web page that had a big map that you could just click on the state and hope that it had been updated with whatever recent information. I think.
Oh my gosh!
Funny story. I actually think Khazon's beltline goes back to Sir Neveron, and he was a trucker, and he's one of the main proponents for getting that going or keeping it updated, if I'm not mistaken. It was back a long time ago. Tangential, I'm sorry. Continue with your story, man.
Yeah.
No. It's fine. I was just going to wrap it up. The only name we had on there was the Baron. So I go ahead and I ask him, can I speak to the Baron? And there's this long pause. Long pause.
Oh, no.
And then all of a sudden I hear this, Dad!
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, it's like you're calling into a mafia boss or something.
Yeah.
so I ended up getting Sir Bjorn on the phone, and at the time Squire Bjorn, and he starts explaining the whole thing. It was amusing, but I mean, it was just quite the experience there with that. So yeah, and then my first day at AmpGuard was pretty amazing. One thing I could do without though, there was one experience where it was like, okay, well here's the thing. Let me explain to you how the hits work and so on. And then so I'm like, okay, I understand the mechanics. And then there was okay, I'm gonna go ahead and throw a bunch of hits on you now. If you can't handle this isn't the game for you. And I'm like, so I can't just spar you? Like, no, I'm gonna go hit you a bunch of times, and if you're okay with this, then you're good to play. I'm like, okay.
Old AmpGuard.
And the guy just repeatedly wail on me. I'm like, all right, I survived that. I'm not going to murder you.
Thank God we moved away from that. But I had a similar first experience showing up in Knoxville because my park had a bunch of triads at the time, and it's like, okay, well, we're just gonna give it to you. And I was like, okay, this will be fun. No, I was bad.
I had an amazing time. The park was weird. So, but yeah, thanks. That was how I kind of got into this whole thing, you know. And of course, I was one of those perfect kind of candidates, you know, into D&D, but also did martial arts, you know. So like, you know, you're kind of into that thing, right? It's okay for me to kind of wear a different outfit when I'm doing this workout thing that's combat related, and then also, you know, this kind of, you know, fantasy medieval thing that we do with words and dice.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned Bjorn, Squire Bjorn at the time, and your park, Darkwater East, was one of, if not the largest park on the East Coast in its time. And this would have been right around when you were getting in, or a little bit after you were getting in. What is it like playing AmpGuard at a park that large? How large was large for you guys? What was your high numbers, and what did you do?
So, yeah, no, I mean, it was absolutely amazing. I mean, I was just blown away. So it turned out that the place was 5 minutes from where I was living. So it was a super quick trip, and I was meeting, again, typically between 40 and 60 people, but sometimes it could burst, you know, and be around like 80 or so. But typically I would say it was around 40 to 60. But it was amazing. There were always things going on. So many people. A lot of folks would come and sit and draw. A lot of folks were really into the role play. A lot of folks were big stick jocks, and there was a lot of folks that, you know, only wanted to battle game and quest. But there was always kind of that feel of there's always something for everyone, you know, and the crafters too, you know. So it was really, really great having that much, you know, diversity and people to talk to and people to talk about, honestly, because there was always something happening.
That's always really fortunate to be at a park that has something for everyone and can justify having something for everyone. You know, when you only have 10 members and 2 of them want to craft, 2 of them want a battle game, 2 of them want a stick jock. I mean, there's you water it down so much, everybody sort of runs out of things to do with the people they want to do it with.
Yeah,
absolutely. But no, I loved it. It was, like I said, it was huge. I did a survey like forever ago, and I can't remember the exact stats, but I want to say something like within just like Darkwater, we had something around like 8 different fighting companies and like 13 households or something along that line.
Wow.
So I mean, there was a lot happening. And we had all these like different games that we play on a regular basis. One of my favorite was the caravan game, and the park was really amazing. There was this huge tree when you would get there, so you had this like shade tree to kind of leave your stuff and hang out for a bit, and then you go out in a big field, like a big soccer field, and you go fight out there. But then just past that, you also had this big open woods area with trails and areas that you could have a good sized battle game in with trees that were maybe spaced maybe about like 10 to like 12 feet apart, so that you had like those trains you could hide behind the trees, you could kind of run around them, but it also wasn't like restrictive and in your way, and there was like lots of cleared areas, so you weren't like running through like the underbrush. But I absolutely love the caravan game where you had this person who could only walk, and you had to escort them from one area to the next. You have all these pop goblins trying to take out the adventurers.
I almost wonder if Amtgard has lost some of these battle games through the different rulebook revisions and things like that were kind of staples a long time ago.
Yeah.
I know that I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but I know that someone was putting together a book of different battle game ideas on the national level years and years back. I assume that that's still around, but that would be something fun to add to something like that. I think
absolutely.
The
in fact, in reference to in knowing about this coming up, I thought about that. I'm like, well, what games did we used to play? And so actually, I pulled out this old book of games that I had, and trying to pull some of those things up. We just to name some of the things that we did. We had Apollo Staff. We did these are games we played all the time. Apollo Staff, Lords and Ladies, Ring the Bell. That's still really common.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Tree Hugger. Yeah, Tree Hugger, Capture the Flag, of course, in anything, right? There was a zombie game. We played Geese Across the River, Goblin Ball, different than Orc Ball, Mutual Annihilation, which, it's its own it's its own thing. And oh man, if we all remember how the death counts used to be in old school Amtgard.
Right, that's what I was going to say. Can you even play Mutual Annihilation now with sort of infinite lives?
Right, exactly. It just doesn't really serve as much of a place anymore because, like you have infinite reses and things like that with healers and also like monks. And then if you toss in like bards helping out those monks, much faster. But, yeah, those are some of our staples there. I'm not sure if Flo, if you remember those or Lucas, if you do, or what those all entail. But those were a lot of our staple games. We had a lot of fun with.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my first trips down to Florida, we played quite a few of those. It was the old Bible camp that we used to stay at. A lot of our park had its staple of those old niche weird games that we would play too, but we brought a lot of them back from Florida the very first time that we went down there.
Yeah, and the militia battles. A lot of big fans of the militia. Because that was kind of like that quasi between ditching and battle games with like less rules.
Right.
And then one last follow up for this. You mentioned earlier that the park had a lot of diversity in terms of interest and what people would do when they were actually out at the park. Talk to me a little bit about a healthy park. This is kind of a catchphrase people throw around that I sometimes don't like the direction that it goes in. But coming from someone that was at a large park like that, what do you think helped it succeed with that many people and that many different interests kind of pulling those people in different directions?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things for a park to succeed is the attitudes within that park. That the park is open, accepting, and not just accepting, but welcoming, like super welcoming of everyone who comes in that's new. That people, in general, it's the culture that goes out of their way to talk to make friends with, to assist and help the newer person grow into an Amtgarder. Because there's so much that goes into that, coming up with your own garb, coming up with your own weapons, sometimes coming up with your own persona, understanding the rules. And when we first started, we had like a mentorship program as well that would help to assist with that.
Wow.
But I really think when I first
that.
came to join, it was really that attitude, that everyone should be warm and welcome and inviting to the new person.
Yeah.
I think that's the first step. The next step, I would say, is that you have actively things going on and planned. That it's advertised in advance what you're doing, and that didn't always happen in our park. But I think that is what I've seen as in the success of a lot of parks. And even if we didn't have like the thing planned, like all the specific games planned for that day, which we kind of alter based off the number of people showing up and what was going on and who was there. But if you had scheduled things happening, so for example, we would have very commonly something sort of Bjorn tried to encourage us to do, and something that I did during my terms and I saw other people do is we would try to have a quest once a month. We would try to have a tournament once a month, and we would try to have at least one arts and sciences meeting a month. So and we at that time were super fortunate that we had a couple members that were members of the Lions Club as well, and so we were able to meet in the Lions Club once a month without any charge. So we were able to meet in a big, nice, comfy room with electricity and all that stuff, like not in someone's home, and able to do our thing. And again, like scheduling those things and having those things to look forward to were huge. Let's see. So having things scheduled, being really friendly, and advertising. I think that doing the Hog Time Evil Fair was one of the biggest things that kept the park going, because we were able to get the name out there and had a pool of folks that were going in to advertise to folks that would likely be interested, like our target market, Ren Fair kind of folk. To go ahead and have some interactions with, and that relationship being built through that game, the clue game, and then also we'd have like some ditching and sparring and stuff, a little that we would have scheduled during certain hours of the day that we could jump in and new people would come in to join. So like advertisement in a personal way, being friendly to newcomers, and having things scheduled that are going on for people to look forward to and to plan. Because if people are just kind of like, oh, do I want to go out today? I don't know. But if they actually have a plan, like everybody's like, oh yeah, hey, are you going to the arts and science thing today? Hey, are you going to come out for the tournament? Then people are more likely to follow through if they have it planned and scheduled.
Right. The scheduling thing for me is a big one. I that was one of my things showing up the park, and if enough people would show up, eventually somebody would go, okay, well, let's do a ding the bell or something like that. But you show up and it's just assumed that you're ditching. And I know a lot of parks are doing that now. They're trying to schedule online talks and things like that. So having something scheduled that people can look forward to, I think, is a really big one. And we're seeing just how big it is with all of the COVID stuff happening and things like that.
Absolutely. And like the quests too, because some people would gear up and think about their role play ahead of time, how they're going to react to this particular scenario that's coming up, who they want to have in their party. So they're talking about like, with their friends, like, hey, do you want to be part of my adventuring party? Hey, what spells do you want to take? Because I think we might encounter this or this in the upcoming quest.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, like, all those things kind of help to spur those side conversations and keep the community rolling throughout the week rather than just on that weekend, kind of like segmented. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually want to change topics really quickly.
Yeah.
So you said something earlier where your park that you started at had a wide diversity of fighting companies, and that sort of dovetails into some research I had done. Feel free to fact check me on this, but as far as I understand it, the Seraphim split off from the triads around 2005, 2006. I know you weren't part of that initial split, like you weren't one of the facilitators of that split, but I think you joined the Seraphim right after. Am I right in that?
Yeah, I joined not long after that. That's correct. So we had like I think it was like the initial founding three, and then I think they took in I want to say they took in Nocturne, and then after Nocturne was myself. And then Nocturne later went ahead and rejoined the triads and so on. But yeah, I was one of the earlier members to be sure.
Well, so I mean the reason I bring this up is when I think Seraphim, I think Khazon. You are one of the most recognizable members of that fighting company, and you've got a great logo, which of course makes you easy to recognize no matter where you are. But what was it like early on when you guys weren't a huge fighting company? You weren't where you are now. What was that like super early on?
Well, early on, again, yeah, like you said, like we were small, and we were pretty active initially, but it didn't take long before we had some inactivity kind of seep in, and then we needed to kind of grow a little bit. And to that end, when I moved up north, because I think, let's see, I joined just a little bit after I had moved up north already. So when I'm saying up north, I mean up in North Georgia, around the Atlanta area. And I realized that, I'm not sure that we can, sustain this if it's just going to stay down in Florida. I think we need to expand and get some folks up here. And I had already met some great fighters up here that I really had interest in and wanted to go ahead and bring them to the company. And then we brought in Cade up here, and we brought in Jarek, some excellent fighters, great guys, some of my favorite. And so we started expanding, and now we have more Seraphim up here in the north throughout Winter's Edge than we do down south in Neverwinter, where it was founded. So
that seems to be a thing with big fighting companies.
Yeah, I think that the triads are the same now. We don't distinguish like northern and southern triads. We're all just one unit. But if you were to look at total number of people, I think that we have more up north than we do down south now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so I mean, I gotta ask, and I'm gonna ask the question because we have a Seraphim and a triad on the call, and I'm sort of a neutral third party. So, do you know, was there like bad blood with that split, or was this just we're in two different places right now? What was that like?
Well, I mean, our our motto coming together really is we wanted to be want to be known as clean fighters, and that we wanted to get better as a group with our fighting. And we didn't want to just do that in tournaments. We also wanted to do that in battle games and other things like that. But I mean, have I seen some negative attitudes between the two? I mean, years ago. I mean, yeah, that did happen. There were some folks that were still, a little upset about how things went down and the fact there was a split and those kinds of things. But since then, I think that the companies have really grown together. I think that we have a whole lot of friends, going across the ways, especially up here in the north in Winter's Edge, I would say. But down south too, I think that there's been a whole lot of coming back together, because again, like even the folks when they initially left, though they may have been frustrated, they were all like super buds, in general, like beforehand, or not, I don't know, super buds, but they're all really good. They're all really friends, So I think that there's been a whole lot of more friendship and lightheartedness, I think, across the way.
I can definitely see that now. Like, I know that particularly Sir Gillen has a lot of respect for you and in general for the Seraphim in talking with him about it. So it seems a lot more tame now. I just didn't know if it was always that way or if we had to sort of warm up to it.
Yeah, from the triad side, I'll kind of echo what Khazon said there. I think that I was there the night that the split happened, and definitely some hard times, hurt feelings on both sides, that sort of thing. But we're not the first company to split. We won't be the last. Things have gotten a lot better over time, and yeah, there were some rocky patches there. There's a whole lot of alpha personalities on both sides of that line. But we're adults, and people grow up. We move on. We're not 19, 20, 21 anymore. And I think that the companies have a great relationship now. I don't look at it. I don't look at it as like companies when we're at an event. This is my friend Khazon, and I'm hanging out with him and with Cade and with Jarek and all of the other people that happen to be there kind of around the fire or at the ditch line. It's good times. It's good.
No, I'm always looking forward to seeing you all. Because you guys are the competition I'm looking to fight. You guys are the folks I'm looking to get better, and also to come at things from a different angle. Because I mean, you guys are internally fighting each other a lot. We're internally fighting ourselves a lot, and it's good and important for us to see how things are done differently.
Yeah, absolutely. It's same for us, right? Like this is to equate it to a park level. You get really good at fighting the people at your own park. And sometimes you don't realize how much you've grown until you go branch out, go to a different park, go to an event or something like that. And the fighting company divide is the same. We fight amongst ourselves quite a bit, and there's critiquing and improving, and all of that's good. But one of the prices that comes with that is that in some ways that group of people will begin to standardize the way that they're fighting. And so it takes someone from outside that group to go, hey, this thing that you're doing, I really like it. You're never going to be able to use it against a top end fighter. They're going to kill you every time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of both of the companies, we've been getting older. We're talking about that a little bit before we started here. You have now received 2 knighthoods. Congratulations on that, by the way. Talk to me about your path to knighthood. What was it like early on? Is this something that you wanted to do from the very beginning? You came in and you saw the people with the white shiny belt and said, someday that's going to be me. Or was it something you kind of grew into?
Well, let's see. So one of my very first AmpGuard events, it was either my first or my second. There was a knighting, and I thought it was amazing. In fact, actually, my first 2 AmpGuard events were just amazing. One of them was at Ginny Springs, and we had we had the water out available to us. We had tubes, and we were whacking each other with our swords out in the water.
That sounds so good.
Yeah, it was amazing. There was a volleyball court, and we started ditching in the volleyball court without our shoes. Probably dangerous, but it was a lot of fun. They had war chants that were happening. It was a wet site. It was awesome. Unfortunately, we lost that one because somebody was serving drinks to an underage person. So that was a real bummer. But oh my gosh, the site was amazing. And my experience too was and the second one there was this huge quest that my party ended up winning, and people were really going all out with the prosthetics and the garb. And then we had Subway catered, and there were smoothies, and I'm like, oh my god, for $20, how can I not go to this? How can I not have camping and food and games and all this ridiculousness? Anyway.
Yeah, I've had less fun at music festivals.
but yeah, I all of a sudden saw this guy get knighted, and I'm like, wow, that's really super cool. And there were a couple of other knights that were there at the time. And then he happened to also be at my park, and one of the people that I had got to know initially kind of showing me the ropes. And I thought that was super cool. But that was the only night that we had at our park. But very quickly, I was being told all around oh, well, this happened, but Neverwinter never knights people, blah blah blah. And there was all kinds of negative things being passed around about the circle. And I think that part of this problem was that I think that the Night Circle and Neverwinter, and even ours to some extent, I think we need to do a little better job about transparency and explaining what our Night Circle does, or what the Night Circles do, what they have, what they're in charge of and what they're not in charge of. Some people were thinking that the Night Circle were the ones in charge of the upper end awards, and they would vote on upper end awards, and people would veto you, and there's all kinds of folks thinking well, this person doesn't like this person. So it was there was a lot of things going on. I think if there was a little bit more transparency, there would have been quite as much negativity about it.
Right.
But anyways, so coming from that background of things kind of going around and being told to me, I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I may never get knighted, because that's just apparently something that really didn't happen. This was some sort of fluke, and cool. That's awesome. This guy got knighted, and I think he's great, and all that kinds of stuff. And I don't know, I really hope that's not completely true, and more people will get knighted and all that thing. But so I went about it in that way. I'm like, I'm just going to do the things that are fun. And if I end up getting a knight's belt for it, cool. But I'm going to do the things that I think are neat to me and that I have fun with. And so that's what I always kept doing.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I ended up. Yeah, go ahead.
It really is where the joy in the game is. I don't know how many people I've talked to in the long time, and you as well, that as a knight you talk to people and they say, oh, what's the road like? How do I get there? And do things that you enjoy. Don't if a belt's something that you want, your eye on the brass ring type of person, that's okay. But fill it with things that you have fun with. If that's doing ANS, do ANS. If that's hopping in and helping out, help out, right? I completely agree with the sentiment there. It's fill your life with joy. If AmpGuard's doing contributing to that joy, then that's amazing. And you reach a point where you kind of pause and say, I didn't realize that I was that close. I didn't realize that I was.
Well, this is something. So we had a talk with Sir Duffer in one of the Discord chats hosted by Radiant Valley, and one of the things he said that really was kind of eye-opening for me was that at some point every knight gets kind of burnt out. And he said the most important thing you can do is don't stop playing the game, go do something else, but come back eventually. If that's something you really want, come back, but don't let your burnout in the game for you. And I at first kind of dismissed it when he said it. I said, that's whatever, that's Duffer. But then I actually looked at a couple of knights in the Orc, and almost every knight is really close to another belt. I mean, you are, Sir Flo, you're pretty close to a sword belt. Sir Gillen is really close to a crown belt. I mean, Sir Khazon has 2 belts already. So it really, I looked at the Orc, I saw that, and I said, oh, all these knights at some point did something else and then came back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you can keep this interesting. And your park and your kingdom and the larger AmpGuard community can definitely help with that. There's always something new and something fun to look into.
Right. I think it's easy to lose what makes the game important to you. Over time, those things, you start to go, is it really worth it? But you have to somehow keep that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I found, happiness in helping out my friends if they were having, if they were running something, okay, well, I'll help you with that thing. So it's not so stressful. And I enjoyed helping them, I found that I liked running battle games, and I had fun running and planning battle games and making quests and that kind of thing. And I did a lot of that. And then, I found out after I kind of like seen how things were running, I'm like, okay, well, I think maybe I could jump into leadership and do those kind of things. Because I felt that in a number of those situations that I had things to offer, and a lot of the people were like more busy or were just like too concerned, like that they would mess things up or whatever. And I was like, I'm just gonna give it a go. And I think that's always been enjoyable. And from time to time I like making stuff too. I think it's useful to have those things to wear, and it's really great getting those compliments when you make something. Mm-hmm. and that kind of drives me. But I think one of the more detrimental things is if we hold out an award to someone and say like, hey, you make this and I'm going to put you over for that, like for your next whatever, I want you to do this thing, and at some point that can be okay. But like the thing is if you don't end up getting that award for that thing, it really hurts and it really sucks. Mm-hmm. And as much as we really try to recognize people, these awards sometimes come out a little random, because it's really difficult to properly award everyone. Sometimes things that are really big and go through the cracks, and then sometimes like this thing that you did that was a little less gets an award, and you kind of scratch your head. But that's kind of how things go, and hopefully over time, you end up getting recognized. Kind of this law of averages things. I mean,
balances out.
You just kind of keep up with it, and you don't put all your eggs in one basket and just assume like oh well, I wasn't seen, and you just get really upset. And I think something that's also super detrimental is when we have folks that see something awesome and very upset that so and so didn't recognize them for that. And the thing that needs to be asked is, well, did you put in the recommendation yourself? Well, so let's say Flo makes something hugely amazing, like some sort of a chainmail shirt with a bunch of inlays, and I don't know, whatever.
Fantasy land now.
Yeah, right? I'm looking at Flo like no.
Flo puts in an attorney, and then he doesn't get recognized at all for it. He's really pretty bummed. And it'd be cool that if Flo got recognized for it, and then a bunch of people come up to Flo and say, hey man, like I can't believe that so and so didn't recognize for you. They didn't recognize you for this. He must hate you or whatever. When like maybe the monarch wasn't present. Or maybe it was a higher end award, and there wasn't good communication that the local parks need to give the higher end award. They can only give so much. Sometimes these things happen and get overlooked. And the thing is that we all need to, if we're that person like that has that thought of, man, Flo should have gotten that award. What the first thing we need to do is we need to put in Flo for that award and not get Flo angry at all the other people.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a plea.
That's destructive. That's toxic to the officer. Because they may not have known about what's going on. And it may, it's toxic maybe to the judges, because maybe the judges weren't even told, like, hey, we want you to specifically, put in awards. That's one of your biggest roles as a judge. To be honest, for years, like, that was something never really said. Like, I think now we've done a much better job of making sure that all of our judges for tournaments, like, one of the key things I want you to look for is awards. What's this person's next whatever? And we want to have that, like, information on, like the attorney write-up or whatever, like, that kind of thing. We've got a lot of things in place now to do a better job of recognizing people, I think.
I almost came out of my seat because this is so spot on. I want to make a plea in the middle of this whole thing. If your kingdom has an official channel for submitting award recommendations, use that channel and use it often. Because I can tell you...
Louder for the people in the back!
Right, Flo will turn my gain up in post, it's fine. Because we just did a digital awards ceremony for Winner's Edge, and I mean, it wasn't my favorite thing in the world. I would much rather do it in person, but I had people coming up to me 20 minutes before I went live saying, oh, I've got an award rec, can you put this in? And I'm like, I'll cram you in at the end of the spreadsheet if I can remember to do it, and then people hitting me up one at a time, and I'm like, please just take it to here's a link to the form. Please go here and fill this out. This will make my life so much easier. I won't lose it in all the churn. It'll end up on the awards recs. It's so essential. I know it's easier for you to come directly to me as a monarch, but please use that and use it often. As soon as you see something, go fill out the rec. It'll get around. We'll get around to it. I promise you. I want to give the awards. Yeah,
it's one of the first places that that you should really start is friend makes this thing. Friend, in this case, this hypothetical didn't get the award. What was the channel to get that information to the monarch? And did you or anyone else that agrees with you follow that channel? There's a little bit of social responsibility on there too. I'm of course not going to say that it's 100% there. The tournament should have some methods to funnel that towards the monarch or whomever it needs to go to as well. But you have to brag on your friends. This is in this game. If you have friends that are making great stuff, cheerlead for them.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to other people about the work that they're doing. Talk to the monarch about the work that they're doing. You got to get their name out there.
Absolutely. I would highly encourage people who end up making new things to go ahead and show other people what you've made. Get it out there. Put it out on the arts and sciences, the winners of arts and sciences, or whatever arts and science list that you have. Get it out there. Let people see that stuff. Come to some of the better artisans within your group and say, hey, look, I just made this thing. This was my whatever number 10th or whatever, and I tried this new thing. Can you look it over? Like, what kind of tips can you give me for improvement? Because I really think it's awesome, and I'm really excited about it. But what can you tell me to kind of take it to the next level? And encouraging those people to get out of their shell and talk to some of those upper end artisans, I think is really big. So doing that, getting them to kind of put that out there so they have their own growth. I definitely say again, like we just talked about, making sure that every judge is aware of ways to make sure to put in for I think this is worth an X owl, or I think this is worth up to an X dragon, or up to an X whatever,
mm-hmm.
and putting that up there to the monarchy for each item. And I think also that it was really good practice for me. When I was monarch at times, I would talk to and again, not always, but this is something I started doing. Talk to my local monarchy. Okay, so all the different parks, and have the monarch themselves of each park before a certain amount of time before the event, to enough time, for award recommendations, kind of get in, have a cutoff, and then be prepared to go through all of them, double check them, and then write out all the awards. Again, which sometimes those get postponed. You end up kind of last minute doing those things, but you do the best you can. But have a cutoff for the local monarchs to get back to you about who they think deserves a higher award from their park. So an award that they can't give, that they think that people in their parks are deserving, ask them to ask around and talk to people at their park, and then have them send you stuff by X date, and tell them, I want you to either tell me a list of the people that you think are deserving of whatever awards they're deserving, or tell me I don't have any to pass on to you at this time. And that holds them accountable for searching for those awards, because ultimately the monarchs and the regents of the parks and monarchs and regents of the kingdom are responsible for those awards, right? And we're all responsible to feed that information to those folks, yeah? But they also they kind of also have to do their homework and the research and talk and hunt out those things. But it's virtually impossible for the monarch to know outside of their own park what's really happening outside of there. And the people with the eyes and the ears in the field, those are the local monarchs and the local regents. And so telling them that it's their job, they've got like a month to come up with whatever awards, that you want to give out. And then they say yes or no. And that way, like folks come back and you say, well, no one passed on anything from me from that group. Like, so it's that empathy, that pressure is put on them where it really honestly should be. And then you can also praise and say like, hey, I was recommended by so-and-so from their park, this monarch, this regent, that they did such and such thing, and you'll get some really great detailed information from them. Often more detailed than you have from like some random like friend of theirs who's a newer person, which you definitely want to have those people, but you'll get probably a more clear idea and description of the things that are going to make you go, oh, they're just totally deserving or whatever of that award, because it's coming from the monarch or the regent in that park.
Yeah. And to wrap this up, I know Cabbage has another question for you. Yeah. There are a lot of viewpoints on awards and when and how they should be given, and I've heard people say things like you shouldn't chase paper, or you should do this because you love doing it and not for the award, and things like that. I don't really care what side of that conversation you fall on. This is not what we were discussing. This is about getting people recognized for the work that they're doing. This is about that thing that your friend is getting better and better at, and you're watching them slowly improve. Telling other people about it, getting some recognition there, and then for the crafter, as you mentioned earlier, being able to go talk to other people about that craft and accept some constructive criticism back about some of the work that you're doing. We learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. And I am by no means an artisan, but I have dabbled enough to learn that a piece can both be an amazing success for you and also provide you with a lot that you can learn to better yourself in that particular craft.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to jump a little more into knighthood. I've actually got I'm cheating a little bit. I've got your Amped Wiki page in front of me. And one of the things I noticed
I need to update that, baby.
It's maybe, but goodness, I'm scrolling through it, and there are more sirs than season 1 of Game of Thrones. You scroll, and it's sir this, sir that, sir this, sir that. So you come from, if we're gauging the success of a belt line by how many knights it creates, this is a gold star belt line. And you have 2 people who at this last symposium, an event that we have here in Winter's Edge, 2 people who achieved their masterhood, I believe, at the same event, and both of them have been approved for knighthood. Tell me about that. What's that like? You've got to be immensely proud, right?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I'm super proud of both of them. Cade, very early on, he was my first person that I put a belt on. And he's worked his way all up, starting from page and all that. He's been with this game for such a long time, and he's put in an amazing amount of effort and work. And he's a great fighter, a clean fighter. He's a really, really intelligent guy, and he really makes events fun for a whole lot of folks. He cooks, he runs battle games, he designs and runs quests. For years, he's part of the CC team putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
Man, oh man, to me, he is really somebody that I've been wanting to see as a knight for years. I think he's been knight material from early on, and has done nothing but keep on rocking it and trying and doing his best out there for the things. I think that's awesome, and I really look forward to the time when white belt does go around that waist.
Yeah, I would be excited. I'd love to do it as soon as possible, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And then Vashiran too. I'm also super proud of him. I mean, he's held a number of offices now at this point, and those high offices. Starting off in a good way. Like I'd say, Champion's a great spot as a platform to kind of get your feet wet into office, and he really rocked those champion positions, running battle games, creating battle games, getting people interested, getting the RP storyline going, and really fueled a lot of folks there. Kind of in our push towards the end with Kingdom and everything, and then followed up, taking the monarchy spot and rolling on with that. So I'm super proud of him and what he's done.
So for people who don't know, if you've never seen Cade at an event, it's because the man stays busy. If you go into the kitchen, he's probably there running around like crazy, and then after that, he's usually running around on the field like a madman. And then on the other side of the coin, we have Vashiran. I think he was the first monarch of Winter's Edge. Do I have that right?
He was.
No.
He was our first elected.
Okay.
Khazon actually was.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
Khazon was our monarch when we got Kingdom. So he will technically be the first monarch of Winter's Edge always. But the first election that we held.
Got you. Okay, that's the
Vashiran was Vashiran was the one that won that.
So I have to ask. I'm forced to ask a trapdoor of a question.
Dun-dun-dun.
Which one's your favorite?
Oh man, I love all my beltlings equally. No. I love them both. I think they're both awesome. If you're gonna force me to make a pick, I'm
not forcing you to make a pick.
I've had a longer relationship with Cade.
Fair enough.
No, but they're both great guys. Both great guys.
They are, and we're looking forward to moving forward. That COVID has slowed things down for everyone, and unfortunately, we along with most of the other kingdoms in Amtgard, I'm sure, are going to be pretty backed up on our knightings.
I will say this: the knighting gift groups that spring up on Facebook every time a knighting is to happen, they've got plenty of time. So I'm expecting some quality material for everyone across the board.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks so much for joining us, man. We have 2 questions we always end the show with. This has been great. I hope that everybody has gotten to know a little bit more about Khazon, and I know that I really enjoyed this. We've known each other for going on 20 years now, I think, and it's great to be able to pull up some of those old memories, especially some of those early events that you were talking about and the crazy games that we got into. Speaking of, my question for you, tell me a funny Amtgard story that doesn't directly incriminate anyone else.
We'll bleep you if we have to. I think we have the technology.
Yeah,
okay,
I do.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, you see, there's this time when people believed that duct tape was and packaging tape was not just for swords but for people.
Oh, yes, there was.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, it was a thing in Amtgard for a period of time, and people kind of trying to dodge being chicken winged and things like that. I just say that I'll leave that at that. And if you're interested in more of that story, you should hunt out people who know. You can ask about that chicken winging. We'll just put that out there.
So I'm actually going to tell a story on Khazon if he doesn't want to continue. There's a duct tape story too. The me and another person at my park at the time named Chunk had decided that we were going to get the very elusive Khazon. No one had been able to pin him down up to this point. So we worked out a plan and waited until he was distracted with a plant that we had go up and ask him a question. And we both jumped him from behind. Now, the plan was that we were going to wrap him. Chunk, I'm 6'4". Chunk is also a pretty big guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we were going to get him from behind because Khazon was this skinny guy, and there's no way he was going to be able to get away with this. And it worked. It worked perfectly. We were able to get hands on him, get the duct tape out, and that, if anyone has been in the game for a long time, you never forget the sound of that duct tape slowly, being wrapped around someone. So Chunk and I are celebrating our victory to each other, and Khazon is of course congratulating us on finally capturing him as the duct tape is slowly going around him over and over and over again. And we're this is about a 2 or 3 minute process because we want to make sure it's a whole roll of duct tape that we go through. We really want to make sure that we get him because we have to show other people. We need pictures with it. Cameras weren't in phones at this time. This is how long ago that was.
Hearing this story,
and Chunk and I are both really hairy guys too.
Mm-hmm.
And so after we have completed this entire process, Khazon walks away holding the empty roll of duct tape that he had never possessed, and we are wrapped up. We don't know how we got wrapped up or when it happened because focus had moved away from what we had originally wanted to do and to our victory speeches that we were going to give, and he left us there at the feast hall duct taped together. You remember that?
It's good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Okay, so with Flo's edition, funny Khazon story there. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, I have one last question before we go. We're trying to get in compelling people, and this has been fantastic. Who would you want to hear a podcast episode from? Who do you recommend to be on the show next?
Absolutely. Personally, I would love to have Cade on. I think he would be an amazing person. And, if you're looking for another one, I would also say Vashirin. These are two folks that you just mentioned that are coming right up that path towards knighthood. I would love to hear more from them.
All right. Cade, Vashirin, you heard that. You've been called out. It's like the Khazon challenge.
I'm penciling them in for 8:00 on Thursday.
Well, hey, thank you again so much for joining us. I have been Flobojan Thunderhammer.
And I'm Cabbage Tidehammer.
And I'm the guy who's going to still recommend the name for this show.
What do you think?
Please do. Please do. So,
yeah.
WAK.
So I would say, welcome, plan, promote. Those things keep your park going. Welcome, plan, promote.
Welcome, plan, promote. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and say absolutely not. We're not going to.
That's putting too much on us. You are expecting a lot. No,
yeah,
I don't know.
What is we're lazy. What is the job of our guests if we have to go through all of that?
Welcome, plan, promote. We'll make that the episode name.
Yeah, okay.
There you go.
Welcome, plan, promote is the name of this episode. In fact, why don't we do this? Every week, our guests will get to name their own episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot.
So Khazon has started this tradition. Every week, our guest will be naming our episode. Welcome, plan, promote for this one. I don't have anything else. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I know that it's starting to get late there, and you have students to teach in the morning.
I sure do. And I've got virtual students I need to create more content for tonight. But I tell you what, it's been an amazing honor that you guys have brought me onto the show, and I really appreciate it. You guys have been awesome hosts.
Thank you so much.